course, we have to start with the biggest news of the weekend, the one that everyone's still talking about on this Monday, the one that everyone is debating, the one that everyone is going back and forth on. Everyone at the water cooler today, I'm sure, is talking about it. Everyone at the barbershop is talking about it. Everyone at the watering hole is talking about it. Of course, I'm talking about the announcement that on June 15th, Anderson Silva's fighting Chael Sonnen again for the third time. Could you believe it? They're actually doing it. They're back. Oh, yes, they're back. This was announced on Sunday by a beer company. They announced that Anderson Silva is going to be fighting Chael Sonnen at a black tie event in front of 600 people. It's going to air on Globo and Combate in Brazil. As of right now, I'm told no TV deal in the United States. How about that? And this was an ad to announce it on Sunday in Times Square. They announced Chael and Anderson in Times Square. How about that? Chael actually put out a great video. It's called Spat Fight Night. This is what Chael put out after the announcement. Classic bad guy.
Oh, Anderson, yoo-hoo. It's me again. See you June 15th.
I told you guys, the Venn diagram continues to get greater and greater. MMA, boxing, everyone wants to do it. 5 2-minute rounds, 98 kilos. That's around 216 pounds. Pro boxing, June 15th. Sao Paulo, Chael, Anderson 3. Crazy. We could talk about that as well. But of course, I'm just kidding. It's Usyk Fury. What a fight it was. Golly, what a fight it was. It was everything we wanted and more. And yes, I know people were lamenting that it was going on. And yes, the cards tend to drag. And yes, they said, okay, let's go to the tail. My guy Ade is like, let's go to the tail of the tape. But first, here's a concert. The concert actually wasn't horrible for what it was. The production, top notch. I will say this, from afar, I wasn't there. The only one I've been to was Ngannou Joshua. This seemed 1,000 times bigger. Ngannou Joshua, if I'm being 1,000% honest, was rather cavernous and empty. And this one culminated at around 1:30 local time. Joshua Ngannou culminated at around 3:30. The place never really got going. The luminaries weren't there. The legends weren't there. The celebrities weren't there. And I know that the stakes were completely different. But I was curious if we were starting with Ngannou Fury, which was here, and then we went to Day of Reckoning, which felt like it was here, and then we went to Ngannou Joshua, which felt like it was here, and I was curious if this would be here. This went all the way back up to the beginning of this new run led by Turki Al-Sheikh. This went back to Ngannou Fury, in my opinion, and maybe even above it. It felt massive. The luminaries were there. The legends were there. The transition from the concert to Usyk's walkout, I thought was well done. Bravo. Both walkouts were tremendous. And then we finally got to the fight. And what a fight it was. I mean, a 40 or so pound weight difference between the two. It continues to defy logic how amazing Usyk is in this weight class. A guy who won gold in 2012 at the Olympics in London as a cruiserweight, was undisputed champion as a cruiserweight, and now he goes in there as a heavyweight. He beats AJ twice. He beats Chisora. He beats Daniel Dubois, and now he beats Tyson Fury. And I thought that he won the first 2 rounds. Then I thought Fury started to settle in and won the next 4 to make it 4-2. And then Usyk started to figure it out to make it 4-4. And then in the 9th, as you see right there, everything changed. He was oh so close to knocking out Tyson Fury. Did the rope save him? Did the ref save him? Who knows? Few more seconds, maybe he does the job. Fury saved by the ropes and the bell, and maybe even the ref. But then Usyk just kept pouring it on, and maybe Fury stole a round or 2 later. But to me, there was no controversy. I didn't like what Fury had to say after the fight in the ring. I didn't like that comment about, hey, maybe, they picked it for him because his country's at war. But again, I'm not going to sit here and kill him because the guy just got punched in the head for 12 rounds. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Not a great moment, but that's how he felt in that moment, and who knows what was going on in his brain. Usyk won that fight fair and square. One judge gave it for Fury. I'm not shocked they did, but To me, there was no controversy whatsoever. It was all Oleksandr Usyk. And in a way, this is the best case scenario for everyone involved, because if Fury would have won, and if he would have won decisively, there would have been no interest in the rematch. Very much like Kambosos and Haney recently. There was no interest in the rematch. Everyone would have said, please step aside, Usyk, give us AJ Fury. But that didn't happen. Usyk won, fair and square. And he was the better man that night. And he might just be the better man, period. But now I think people want to see, can Fury figure him out? This is his last chance. And it's the last chance, at least for now, to revive the AJ fight. He wins that fight. He goes on to AJ, most likely. Of course, AJ could slip on a banana peel in September. But it makes that rematch now what we want to see. Now I want to see that rematch more so than I wanted to see the first fight. And I know that that's, a crazy thing to say, but now I want to see if Fury can redeem himself. His first loss, he had the draw against Wilder in the first fight, but he has never been beaten before. Now he has a 1 on that record. Can he get back on track? Can he figure him out? It's tremendous. And at this point, I don't know if he can. I'm not saying that he got outworked. I'm not saying that he got outclassed, because like I said, he won those next 4 rounds after the first 2, and the first 2 were super close, but you got to give it to someone. I just wonder if right now Usyk is just on a whole other level. And I do consider him to be right now the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I was at Canelo Munguia working on the broadcast, the MMA guy, and they were talking about all kinds of people in the top 2, top 3. And the general consensus is it's Inoue Crawford. It's almost like one guy fights, he goes above the other. Inoue Crawford, Inoue Crawford, Inoue Crawford. I think Bivol should be in that discussion as well. I think Bivol should be above Canelo because he beat him ultimately. Usyk's typically in the top 3, top 4 for most people. I don't know how you can't put him number 1. I don't know how you can say undisputed at cruiserweight, and now what he's done as a heavyweight where he's giving up 30 to 40 pounds. I don't know how you don't put him at number 1. The resume is better than Crawford's. And yes, Crawford has maybe double the fights and Inoue has more as well. But considering the strength of schedule and considering what he's doing now as a heavyweight against bigger guys and who he's beating, again, AJ twice, Fury, the Dubois win I thought was solid as well. I know somewhat controversial, but he it's a 3-horse race. Ultimately, you're not offending me if you're picking Inoue Crawford or Usyk, but if you have to pick one, to me it's Usyk, Crawford, Inoue. And I go back and forth between 2 and 3. So what a run he's on, and what a moment for his country, and what a week for his country. Lomachenko wins in Australia against Kambosos last Saturday, and now Oleksandr Usyk wins on the biggest stage of them all. New York, Rick, you watched the fight. You're a big boxing guy as well. Who did you have winning the fight? Who did you score it for?
Yeah, I had 114, 113 for Usyk.
Wow. Okay, so pretty close.
Yeah. I gave Tyson rounds 3 through 7, and round 12 was how I scored it for Tyson. The rest were for Usyk, including the 10-8 in round 9. So that was how I ended up.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, man. Like, I couldn't have enjoyed it more. Like, and I've said this before, I will always say it. I come back to it quite a bit. High-level boxing, number 1 combat sport for me. Number 1 combat sport experience. Underneath that, high-level MMA. Underneath that, mid-level MMA. Maybe mid-level boxing, but more likely low-level MMA, if I'm being honest. Then mid-level boxing, then low-level boxing. Nothing to me tells a better story. Nothing has better drama than 12 rounds, 12 3-minute rounds of the absolute best boxers on the planet going at it, and that is what we saw on Saturday. So it does not get better than that for me. And undisputed heavyweight championship for the first time in nearly 25 years. Like, it's the maximum drama that you can possibly have. I love it.
Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they're not going anywhere. They obviously have great interest in being a part of boxing and combat sports. Obviously, they're getting more and more into MMA. I thought that this was the best show since Fury and Ngannou, and maybe even better because the aftermath of Fury and Ngannou was incredible, especially for us in the MMA world. But yeah. I thought they nailed it. Again, the broadcasts are long. There's a lot of fights on these cards. But overall, I thought the fights were pretty entertaining. And again, goes to show, and I hope all the promoters are looking like you need to give people a reason to stick around from 12:30 to 7. it can't just be, no namers after no namers. And they gave us enough, Jayo Pataya, Joe Cordina, etc. You gave us a reason to stick around. The fights delivered, but then the buzz in the building for the walkouts and then the fights and the aftermath, it didn't feel what I said dating back to Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, which kind of kicked this off. I know that AJ and Usyk fought in Saudi Arabia, and I know AJ fought Andy Ruiz way back before all this really started in Saudi Arabia. But to me, it kind of starts with the Jake Paul Fury fights where it became a thing.
Run of it definitely started with that. Yeah.
They were feeling soulless. They were feeling empty. This was the first time that I felt like, okay, the fans traveled. It felt like a big deal. Obviously, there's 80,000, 90,000 if it's in Wembley, but it didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like we were missing out. It felt like they put together a big-time show and people came and it delivered.
Also, there's no guarantee if it's not there, if this is not being funded for that purpose, that it even happens. So
That's
I will
true.
take that no matter what. If I'm getting the fight, I mean, my feelings on like Apex versus other things are well known. I care about the fight, and we are getting the fight, and the atmosphere being incredible and great only amplifies it. But the fact that we saw what I believe are the two best heavyweights going at it is all I need. And yeah, it was great to see. It was great to see, and the crowd supported.
Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, you asked how could anybody not have Usyk number one. I will tell you how I do not have Usyk number one. And that is because I hold Terrence Crawford's win over Errol Spence in higher regard because of his placing on the pound-for-pound ranking. And so that is the make or break fight, I think, for the argument across all of it. I would still have Terrence number one. Unfortunately, heavyweights just don't get ranked in pound-for-pound rankings, right? So Tyson Fury, I think, would be like near the bottom of it, right? Or somewhere in the 10 range for most of the lists that we see. Now, granted, I think Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight of the era, but when it comes to the kind of pound-for-pound discussion, I think Crawford's win over Errol Spence is the one that holds the most weight.
Yeah, but that's one. That's one.
It's one, but it's the one. It is two pound-for-pound best guys in
Fair.
primes, and he absolutely demolished them. He didn't win a close decision. He destroyed him. One of the most like systematic breakdowns we have ever seen on another pound-for-pound great. To me, that is a separator. Am I going to argue with anybody who goes, Usyk went from being an undefeated cruiserweight to now the heavyweight champion of the world, undisputed, and says that's my number one? I'm not. I'm not gonna push back. But I will tell you that is why I have Crawford still number one.
Fair, and I hate revisionist history, but you can make a strong case that wasn't the best version of Errol Spence. Errol Spence,
We don't know.
who survived an insane car crash, whose retina was detached. Like, he was not fighting Errol Spence was number two in most people's eyes because of the resume, not given where he was at right then and there. Also, long layoff going into that fight. Fury is still Tyson Fury, who is...
We can do that too. We could say, oh, he got knocked down by Francis Ngannou a fight ago.
He wasn't flipping four times in the air in a freaking Corvette or whatever it was. I'm just saying, to do that at cruiserweight and now to do it at heavyweight...
I love it. It wasn't, let's say this, it wasn't built that way. That fight wasn't built as Terrence Crawford versus diminished Errol Spence.
Of course, they ain't building it. They're not going to do that. But come on.
To me, that is the separating factor. But if anybody has Usyk, I have no
big jump.
Hey, I'm perfectly okay with it. I hate these debates in general. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you my justification. But there's no amongst those three, you can rightfully say like, any of them has an argument. There's certainly an argument between who you mentioned, Crawford, Inoue, and Usyk. And then Canelo somewhere below there. Like, there's a lot of...
Dude, what a time.
Guys.
What a time for boxing. You are so missing out if you are not paying attention to this. I still hear people saying, boxing's dead. Boxing is broken. Look at the fights we are getting, And again, we're getting more this weekend. And then we're getting the 5 versus 5, June 1st, and on it goes. And then look at the talent. It's not like one through 3 are just sort of there by default. These are all generational greats. These people will talk about Usyk from now until the end of time. People will talk about Crawford from now until the end of time. People will talk about Inoue from now until the end of time. People will talk about Canelo from now. You know what I mean? There was once a time when John Ruiz was the heavyweight champion of the world.
I totally
with all
agree
due respect.
with you. There's so many greats just continuing to trailblaze. I will add one more. I will just give a little shout, a little nod to, I think you know where I'm going with this, the original undisputed 2-division champion, Clarissa Shields, I think belongs in the conversation. And
I mean, what conversation?
In the conversation about boxing all-time greats.
Yeah, but
my queen, Clarissa
she is in the Demetrius Johnson like sort of category where you're only as good as the opponents that you face, and unfortunately, she doesn't have dance partners. She doesn't have dance partners. Meanwhile, Katie Taylor's fighting Amanda Serrano again.
I didn't mean to make this a debate or
Sure.
open a can of worms, but we are seeing greatness achieved in boxing quite a bit now, and it's great. Boxing is dead has been trotted out there for as long as I can remember now. It's had the longest possible death I can imagine. It seems to continue on forever. Not dead and extremely healthy.
Do you agree now that the rematch is a lot more digestible? That like if it would have been Fury Usyk, rematch would have been like, please, can you just give us Fury? Meaning Fury beating Usyk.
Yes.
Can you please just give us Fury Joshua? Like this is the time. Make it. Please just do it. Do it in September. Do it whenever. But now there's an amazing story to be told, right? There's Fury coming back from his first loss. Usyk, can he do it again? Was he saved? Like, there's going to be the rematch, I think, is going to be bigger than the first fight.
I totally agree. I think the story coming into the first fight was, is Tyson Fury diminished, right? Like, the fight against Ngannou was one of the worst performances of his career, if not the worst. And just, is he still that guy, right? I think is a question that people were having. Like, what is his skill level? What is his focus? For Usyk, it was, can he conquer another giant? Can he topple the best heavyweight of this era in Tyson Fury? Is he going to be too small ultimately? Like, is Tyson Fury going to be too big? And we got the answer to both of those questions, right? Like, Tyson still seems to be at the top of his game. Certainly in the rounds that he was winning in the longest period of like extended dominance from rounds 3 through 7, for me, he looked great. He looked sharp as ever until he got rocked. And so I think we've answered a lot of questions. Now the story of the rematch to me is what happens in another close fight between the two best heavyweights on the planet. Like, I'm infinitely more intrigued now because I had a lot of the unknowns answered for me, and now I just know that I'm watching greatness. It's amazing.
So early lines are out. Usyk a 2-1 favorite.
Makes sense
for the rematch. Makes sense. Here's my question. I said this last week and got a little bit of pushback. For Tyson Fury to truly be considered the best heavyweight of this generation, I think he needs to beat two people. I think that story hasn't been finished just yet. It's not like he's at Canelo level, in my opinion, where it's like, look, you did it all. You moved all the way up, all this stuff. You got to beat Usyk. You got to beat AJ. And I know AJ lost twice to Usyk. It's just too big, and he's looking too good now. I feel like you have to beat both. If he doesn't beat Usyk, and if he never gets to AJ, I do feel like the legacy takes a bit of a hit. Unfair or fair?
No, fair. I would say I think the AJ part of that has only recently become more significant and more important. It looked like AJ was kind of out of that conversation for quite a bit. And now he's at a resurgence, and I think he is back in that conversation. He needs to beat Usyk in this rematch, otherwise that will be an impossible argument to make. Like, you cannot make an argument that it wouldn't be Usyk, especially if Usyk's able. Now, we don't know, right? How long is Usyk for this heavyweight division? How long is he going to continue to do this? He's kind of achieved everything that you can possibly achieve in boxing. If he wants to kind of extend that legacy at heavyweight, it'd be hard to argue that Fury is better than Usyk, is based on what you said, like the resume of names that he's been able to beat at heavyweight combined with his legacy at cruiserweight. It'd be very hard to make that argument. So he needs this win over Usyk desperately for his legacy.
Fury Joshua will always be in the category for me of a fight, regardless of if they're coming off losses, if they don't have belts. I still want to see it. I would love to see it if it's for undisputed gold at the very highest, but even if it's for like one belt, I don't want to see it. Mayweather-Pacquiao was too late. We are entering a territory where this will be like well past its expiration date if he loses to Usyk for a second time, but I would still want to see it. I would still sign up for it.
Well, it almost feels inevitable, right? Because do you do Usyk versus Joshua if Usyk wins again? Like, is that the fight?
Well, Joshua has to beat probably Hrgović.
If he beats Hrgović.
If Hrgović beats Dubois on June 1st, then he probably fights him September 21st if he's healthy.
And then do you do Usyk?
There's an interesting debate to be had. let's say Usyk wins the rematch.
Yeah.
What's the bigger fight?
Which is currently like October, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at.
Yeah, the start of the next Riyadh season. What's the bigger fight? AJ Usyk 3, and the first two weren't particularly close. In
The
particular,
first one was close.
In
The first
particular,
one
the
was-
second.
Yeah.
Or at that point, just F it, AJ Fury.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of interest in Usyk versus Joshua, if I'm being honest.
I
Like
know. It's a
after
tough one for
two
Usyk.
wins, like
It's a
it'd
tough
be
one.
hard to get people. I will say, I think Joshua looks the best he's ever looked. Right now, granted, I'm not going off. Wow, he knocked out Francis Ngannou. Like there, it has been his pairing with Ben Davison that I think is what people need to kind of like focus on, and where Joshua is in his career, and also kind of like where he is mentally, and how he seems. But I would not hate watching Joshua versus Usyk again. I think that's a fight that if Joshua is on his game and in his best state, like can be competitive and might potentially win that fight. But I think it'll be a hard sell for the public, right? Because of the two losses already. I would prefer to see Joshua versus Fury because, like you, I don't need titles to be on the line for that fight. That is the fight you put in Wembley, and it will just be magical no matter what.
Okay, before we get to Doumbe in about 8 minutes, quickly, just want to get your thoughts. I love the two fights for 304. Those were the fights to make. I know they reached out to Gan. He's filming a movie. I like the Blades fight better, if only because there's a better story to be told there, what happened 2 years ago with the knee and all that stuff. Between the two,
Yeah.
And by the way, for anyone complaining about the interim belt, get over it. The interim heavyweight title has been defended, has been, by three. This will be the third time, and Hannah Barrow did it at 135. Like there is a precedence here. It's fine. It's okay. Everyone's at peace with it. Like don't get hung up on it. Between Edwards Muhammad 2, Aspinall Blades 2, which one are you more interested in?
Aspinall Blades 2 by a high margin. Although I will say, I know the sentiment is to like crap on Leon and Bilal, and like it did no favors when it was like rumored for 300, then ultimately didn't because everybody was griping about it. Like this fight has been like promotionally sunk somehow. I think it's a very compelling matchup. I like the fight. I don't think it's as like people whining about it and griping about it are just kind of like doing it as a gimmick at this point. It's a good competitive fight between two of the best welterweights. I still prefer Tom and Curtis for the drama of it because, I mean, it's very similar, right? There's unfinished business in both of those fights, right? Leon Edwards poked Bilal in the eye very badly, and we got unfinished business. Now, certainly a lot of people, and I know you're one of them, had said like, Leon was cruising. It was one round, and I'm not willing to go there. I want to see that fight. Same with Tom, right? If he's not injured, and the only way that Tom has stumbled in his career was the injury in that Curtis Blades fight, I'm interested in seeing that story play out. I think Curtis Blades is still a very dangerous and viable heavyweight. I think there's a real path to victory for him. And then you combo in the idea that it seems like whatever Tom Aspinall does seems to continue to aggravate John Jones, and the potential collision course, if that ever happens, that to me is the more intriguing option. But I want to make sure to say I'm not in the camp of these people who are like, oh, Leon Bilal, and feel like it's like being shoved down their throats. That's an awesome fight. I love that fight.
And by the way, just because I say that I thought Leon was en route to victory doesn't mean I don't want to see it. There has to be a rightful winner. And also, Bilal should have been offered the 300 fight. It's bizarre to me that that first round wasn't boring.
No.
It was, it was a solid first round.
Yep.
He's unbeaten in his last 10. I think off the top of my head, Leon's unbeaten in his last 11 or 13. Like both guys are the two best welterweights in the world right this second. That's the fight to make. That's the fight that should always have been made. And I feel the same about Aspinall and Blades. That's the fight to make. Blades is coming off a huge win over Jalton Almeida. If I were to answer that question, am more interested in the Edwards Muhammad fight, if only because I think it's a very close fight, and I think that obviously it's for undisputed gold, and Edwards has looked so good as champion. I'm curious to see how long he can be a champion for, right? Like I thought the Covington performance was tremendous. I thought the Usman trilogy fight was tremendous. Obviously the second Usman fight ended great for him. He didn't look great going into the 5th round, but a lot of that had to do with the elevation as well. Like I want to see how long this story can go. And I think the 5-pack of fights that they've announced for it, we don't know if that's going to be the main card, but that, that main event, that co-main, Patty versus Bobby Green, Manel Cape versus Muhammad Makhayev is great as well. Arnold Allen against Giga Chikadze, like that's a very solid 5-pack of fights, especially at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to see Leon Edwards walking out at 5 a.m.?
It's gonna be
What we
great.
all love.
It's gonna be great. Come on.
Solid, super solid card. Love it top to bottom. I'm personally more interested in Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades than I would have been in Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. Don't particularly care about that fight. And to be honest, with the way Cyril Gane kind of like poo-pooed Tom Aspinall and downplayed him, I would have hated to see him get that opportunity anyway, once the shoe was on the other foot, when Tom had the keys to the car. So I like how this turned out, and I think it's going to be a more competitive fight, and I'm interested to see if he can pass this test.
I asked this question on Friday. Conor in Ireland is number 1, maybe in combat sports. Is it possible that Cedric in Paris, Cedric Doumbe in Paris, is the number 2 best seen in all of combat sports? Or I should say, now we're getting into MMA specific because there's Fury in England. In MMA, because there are people who said Aspinall in England, like that's a great scene, but a lot of that has to do with Patty there and Molly. Like I don't know if it's quite there just yet. What Cedric is doing in Paris for PFL Tour is pretty damn amazing, especially considering how the last fight went. Am I wrong? What's better than this?
It's hard. I don't know how to measure it, right? Because if you're comparing like how big an arena they can sell, I think that there'd be an argument to be made for some of the UFC fighters. If your metric is like who can draw the most attention, even when they're just the lone opponent, right? To all due respect to Jaleel Willis, but like he's not exactly the guy that like anybody was there to see, right? When we're talking about the UFC, we're talking about most of the time at that level a matchup, right? It's Conor versus Chandler. It's Leon versus Bilal. You're kind of like talking about the pair of them. In this, it's the Cedric show, right? And with Conor, it's kind of the Conor show to an extent. The celebrities out, the footballers and Wemby and all the people that Cedric's able to draw. It's, I would say, like dollar for dollar, he's probably the guy behind Conor. But just for lack of a better one, I'm sure everybody's favorite fighter, they're going to come out and be like, yeah, you put this guy in here and it's going to be crazy and they're the best. You have to kind of see it. The proof is in the pudding, and Cedric is the man right now.
Wow, it's really incredible. I said to him, "Oh, is Wembanyama going to be there?" Just like trying to think of who other than Mbappe or Hakimi, PSG guys, could be in attendance. Tony Parker last time, but I was saying it as a joke. And then lo and behold, he's sitting in the freaking front row. Yep. What's amazing about these shows as well, and I love seeing Chael in the mix. Chael at one point was breaking down international basketball, which was just tremendous. But like, there's dudes on, like, I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with them, and the crowd is going nuts. Like true local talent, the crowd is going nuts for. It continues to be one of the best stories of the last couple of years. Whatever is going on in Paris, whatever is going on in France in particular, as far as combat sports, MMA and wrestling in particular, boxing hasn't really had much of a scene over there. It's really remarkable. There are rivalries, there are turf wars. It does feel a little bit like what we were exposed to when Ireland exploded. Mm-hmm. And luckily we have the likes of Pizzi to explain to us like the differences between the gyms and the backstory, stuff that I would never know about. It feels a little bit like that. And it's so cool to see it, explode on this level. And we're watching it from afar being like, damn. And you're watching Bellator and PFL, and then you'll see them go to like San Antonio or Atlanta and be like, this doesn't even hold a candle to those scenes. You might as well just focus on Europe if you're them, because the promotions are seen in a completely different light. And the product is so much better and so much more energized when it's over there as opposed to over here. It's such an interesting dichotomy.
Well, it's also the star power, right? You are taking Cedric and putting him in Paris, right? And when the UFC goes, you are taking the athletes and putting them there and putting them in the best environment to kind of succeed and get that appeal. I guarantee, like, maybe, I mean, if people are still awake by the time Leon and Bilal walk, maybe they'll get excited. But I guarantee if Tom Aspinall pulls off something special, that the roof is going to come off that place. So you do this until you can't anymore. That is the way. You put them in the environment that is going to make them seem like the biggest possible stars. And with Cedric Doumbe, PFL, Bellator have done a very good job at making sure that happens.
And look, I know Anthony Pettis isn't the Showtime of 2011. But this to me was another reminder that yes, the season, the playoffs, all that are nice little gimmicks. But when you could put together a big fight, having him sit there, bring him in the cage, the star power, the face-to-face, Chael in the middle, and now you could say, and this is next. You can't beat that. That's combat sports. That's prize fighting. And I thought it was well played, and it might turn out to be, and people will roll their eyes, but you have to start somewhere. It might turn out to be the biggest show in PFL history. These two guys, Pettis playing the part of the veteran who still has some left in the tank, Doumbe coming in there, talking the talk. How do you not put this in Paris? And I know there was talk of the Saudi Arabia show in the fall. How it would be such a shame. It would be such a shame. The difference in the reception, the difference in the vibe would be astronomical. You have to put that in Paris. You're talking about potentially selling. You could sell at a stadium with that fight in Paris, as opposed to it just being another thing on the, on the card in a Saudi show in September. Like that.
I would love that. But I will say, I don't think it's crazy to say this could potentially be the biggest. Like, in the absence of a Francis Ngannou or Jake Paul fight for PFL Bellator, like, what is bigger? What other name is going?
Well, this is bigger than, with all due respect, like Ngannou La Problema. On as far as a fight that makes money.
But even that, we haven't gotten Ngannou La Problema yet. Like, this for all intents and purposes, this is a done deal, right? Like, Anthony Pettis walked into the cage, Cedric Doumbe was in there.
He came back and signed a one-fight deal for this.
They said, let's fight. So until something else comes along, I have no issue with projecting that this could be the biggest fight in company history.
And what if Chris Avila knocks out Pettis?
So what? I don't care.
That's kind of
no. Wait, you crazy? I don't care about that. That's boxing. That's not even related.
Wow. You don't know shit about boxing.
No. That's not even related. I'm totally in Cedric versus Pettis. I don't care what happens with Pettis boxing until then. It's huge.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. Subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.